Sorry, I'm going on so long.
No, it was perfect.
Yeah,
Okay, guys, thank you. We're back with Mike Savage after a little break. Uh, we do things pretty just off the cuff here on the Patty Pod. But Mike, you were talking about. I asked, if it was difficult to, just to accept that you're going to have to go between, picking up a job for productivity's sake, just for earning money, and then going back and forth between the creativity. You talked a little bit about having a Christian conversion at age 18, is that right?
that's correct.
And that helped you.
Oh, that was a remarkably beneficial. It really created a whole new life for me, economically and socially.
Hmm.
So
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
well, yeah, I was in jail,
Uh-huh.
and a friend of mine came and talked to me about his relationship with Jesus, and he asked me what I thought about that, and I said, "Well, my life is going along okay." And he said, "Mike, you're in jail." And
Yeah,
so, he led me through the stereotypical evangelical uh, prayer to accept Jesus, and wow, it just lit me on fire, Patrick.
wow.
I was transformed, seriously.
Yeah,
Uh, in my time since then, I've certainly had a lot of variability in my faith expression,
yeah,
but that was a real turnaround experience for me. I my grade point average in the semester of college where I ended up in jail was 1.6.
hmm.
And the next semester after giving my life to Christ, it was 3.4
Wow.
because I just had a whole different mind.
Yeah,
So it was a mind blowing experience.
yeah, yeah. If and it's continued to this day to shape your worldview.
Yeah, absolutely. I that's what Dvecky's all about, his spiritual journey
Yeah,
and how he's reacting to cultural and relationship issues. And you know I I I'm not much of a churchgoer anymore because
uh-huh.
churchianity was didn't provide me with meeting my needs very well.
Yeah,
But this, Bible reading and prayer, lots of prayer, contemplation.
yeah,
I'm no Thomas Merton, but I'm not a profligate either. So
yeah. Um, I don't know Thomas Merton. He's an author, a Christian author.
yeah, yeah, Catholic. Uh, you know, what was he? Can't think of the word. I got a lot of uh, inspiration from the transcendentalists, like who are those guys? Thoreau
Oh,
and
and Emerson.
yeah, Emerson and self-reliance. That essay, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it. I consider myself a thoughtful person.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I had a spiritual awakening myself in 2012 when I think I was 33. I forget if I have that right. Um, I heard a woman's near-death experience story
oh
on
yeah,
on a PBS special by a guy named Wayne Dyer.
yeah, yeah,
And I had read one of his books before, but it didn't do much for me. I think it was because she tells it she went to heaven or to
yeah,
Nirvana.
yeah,
Um, she's a woman that was raised in Hong Kong. She's of Indian descent, and so she had an interesting cultural upbringing because her parents were practicing Hindus and pretty conservative and for that in that faith and just sort of socially conservative. But she was going to a British school with a bunch of white British kids that were Christians, and they were in Hong Kong, which is predominantly Chinese, with a lot of Confucianists and Taoists, and um, she was getting all these different messages about what was the right way, and
right.
often conflicting or seemingly conflicting, and in any case, she was a very sensitive child, and she she was supposed to get into an arranged marriage, and she ran away from it right at the last minute, to this great shame that, for herself and her family, and the groom to be and his family. And it was, she,
Yeah.
and then she ended up, she carried a lot of fear, and she ended up getting cancer, and she went into a coma, and then she had this near-death experience where she says that she encountered her deceased father and her deceased friend, and was bathing in this sea of love, and it just it was like a switch flipped inside of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could tell she was telling me the truth,
Yeah.
and I
Awesome.
hadn't heard news that good. I had heard news about, your thoughts create your reality, and try to manifest this and that and the other, and it just didn't. It seemed like this person had actually been somewhere that everyone else had just heard about,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
and
awesome. That's great to hear.
yeah, it I I still had a lot of stuff to get through, but it laid a foundation for me to get sober, and I've been sober for 9.5 years, and
Wow. Congrats, man.
thank you. And it helped me, I suddenly believed, and I don't have a denomination. I found some other near-death experience stories to be very helpful. I found this woman's work to be very helpful. She sort of articulates what she thinks is a way of living with divinity in the world, and how that can help people who are sensitive and fearful, and like myself. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I know, and I would have kind of never expected it, because I was, I was, I don't know if I was atheistic, but I was definitely agnostic, and
Yeah.
I had been kind of immersed in uh, this kind of philosophical, atheistic approach to intellectualism. I got deep into as I got into graduate school in my early days, in my
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
I left that world, but I was just working for 7, 8 years when this happened. But I certainly didn't believe in anything beyond, what I could see and touch and feel. And so yeah, I can understand. I just imagine. What's funny. One of the things I believe in is synchronicities. Carl Jung talked about these, and various sort of new agey people will talk
Great.
about it.
Great.
Um, I read your book, one of your DeVecchi books. Maybe it was over the course of two of them, and I was having these like 5 or 6 really strong synchronicities. Uh,
Wow. Cool.
yeah, like you would have your character would say some like old fashioned phrase, and then somebody would say it in my life, like on on the street or at work
Wow.
or something. Or there'd be a name, a very unusual name, and then I would see that, like Ulysses or something, and then I would see it like the next day. It was really
Yeah.
kind of
Wow.
like
Cool.
undeniable.
Yeah.
And that was right before I came out to see you. I thought there's something that I've got to learn from this guy, or see,
Yeah.
like, connect with this guy about,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I wonder if it's one thing that kind of came to me is, how you have these different revenue streams, to speak like a business person. I don't know. Maybe that's a future for me. I'm teaching right now. I did 6 years at this Montessori school, and now I'm at a new school. It's not super traditional, but it's more traditional.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's proven to be quite a difficult transition.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'll probably stick the year out, but I don't know if it's someplace I can stay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm sort of looking at the future, trying to, I was, the authors that I read tell me to follow my heart, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
podcast was an attempt to do that. And I was
Yeah.
hopeful that it would, take off and provide me all the income I needed, which it has not yet done.
Yeah.
And so I sort of wonder about some other way of moving forward where I can, we live pretty simply, and we've been very fortunate to, own a home we refinanced our mortgage at a really favorable rate, and,
Yeah.
have a giant, revenue need, especially for New Yorkers.
Yeah.
We don't have children, and that's part of it too. And so, I can do this. I don't have to make a ton of money to do my life, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to learn something about that from you, but
Yeah.
it seems
Well,
to me kind of like it would require a lot of faith to do.
yeah. Well, one thing I can tell you from my personal experience getting into writing was that I had a tragic uh, traffic accident where two people were killed,
Mm-hmm.
and I was making a lot of money, and then all of a sudden I wasn't making any,
Mm-hmm.
and I that's when I said, okay, I'm gonna write through this, and I think I wrote for 8 months before I sold an article to a Sunday school magazine for $35. And then it was like another year of just laboring, following my heart, so to speak, as that's the phrase you used.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was persevere, persevere, persevere. And, it was tough going. And, if you're in that stage, it's tough going for anybody, even, you have a job and blah, blah, blah. But, to persist with following your creative urges and following your heart is the biggest challenge. And what I learned from that was I can't control the results,
Yeah.
but I can control what I do with my day.
Yeah.
And if I, you know, I would get these synchronicities and encouragements, and then somebody would say, yeah, I sent an article to a logging magazine, and he's it was 1,200 words, and he said, if you can get it down to 300, we'll buy it.
Mm.
And I worked for like a week and a half to get it down to 300. It was the most painful writing exercise. I just didn't think I could do it, and then I learned I could, and
You thought
that's what.
I can't say anything proper in these 300 words. Is that kind of how you felt?
Yeah, I just felt like every word was sacred.
Was this
And when,
a nonfiction article?
yeah, it was. And it was something I created. It was my prose. It was, oh yeah, this is deathless prose, as the saying goes. But what that taught me was that my writing isn't necessarily sacred.
Mm-hmm.
You can get rid of that article or that preposition, and it won't kill your piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so gradually, over a period of like 3 years, I started learning how to write news articles and nonfiction that editors wanted, because they all have a hole to fill. Every publication out there has, they got to put copy in between their ads.
Right.
And if they see something that fits in and it's not, my personal trauma, it's just a story about, X, Y, and Z, then that's very attractive to them because they don't have to have a staff writer do it.
Mm.
So, my point of this all, Patrick, was that following your heart, the podcast is this, that, or the other thing right now, just stick with it and hang in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to learn a lot just by doing it. And, that I've been at times in my life where I've said, okay, I'm done.
Mm.
And I've shut it down and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's a balance. It's a lot of things about writing worked out for me. And, so if I hadn't stuck with it for 3 years before I started learning the craft of news writing,
Mm-hmm.
then I wouldn't have reaped the benefits of making money doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was tough. And that's when you go and, you know, take a job at the as a longshoreman and load bags of wheat for Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so uh, you know, perseverance. It's tough to do in this day and age for a person who doesn't have a job or doesn't have income. They have to have something that puts food on the table and gives them shelter.
Mm-hmm.
But those early days, I was apartment living, and uh, I had I had a wife at that time who was gainfully employed, and uh, she was tolerable. She tolerated my, I was working through a lot of trauma too from the accident.
So can I just back up a little bit? You were a logging trucker, correct?
That's correct.
And you had an accident where some people were killed.
That's correct.
And you then at that point, and if I remember, I think I've heard this story. It wasn't your fault, right?
No, someone turned left in front of me.
And you just couldn't brake in
No,
time.
no, I had a 1.5 seconds to hit the brakes.
So
And
I have my best friend in college. His brother drove a city bus and had a similar experience where it wasn't his fault.
yep,
He killed somebody when he hit him, or a person was killed, I should say.
yeah,
So it's still this trauma, of course.
yeah,
And so that was a 9 to 5 job, that trucking job? Or
yeah. It was a 16-hour a day trucking job.
Oh.
I had truck payments, and I was young and energetic and had the drive and ambition. But
And you
you
were
know,
making a lot of money and you were
yeah,
married.
yeah.
And then that happened and you couldn't get back in that truck for, well, maybe never again.
No, every time I thought about it, I saw the 4-year-old's eyes staring at me as I ran into him.
Yeah.
And I can right now as I'm talking to you, I see his face as plainly as can be.
Yeah.
Glenn Jr. And I pray a lot for Glenn Jr. and his dad and the survivors and his mom, and uh, it never goes away. It just gets different.
Yeah.
So
And so you knew you couldn't, you knew you needed to do something to help with the trauma. And
yeah,
so you didn't go back to work after the accident and so you essentially quit your job and you stayed home and you wrote.
yeah. Well, the truck was not functional, and so I couldn't, even if I had wanted to. But I went into a pretty steep depression.
Hmm.
Uh, I felt like I was responsible, and I felt guilty, and
Hmm.
I felt all kinds of negative emotions about my self worth. And
Hmm.
you start thinking, if I was a normal person and had a job working at Walmart, I wouldn't have this problem,
Hmm.
and I'd be a better person than I am.
Hmm.
But because I'm such a flighty person, that makes me a bad person.
And that
And
was the narrative you were telling yourself, that you were so
yeah,
flighty that you needed to be a trucker because you were so flighty, and this is why this all happened.
yeah, and how I got into trucking was synchronous, and uh, it was paying big dividends financially,
Yeah.
and so I was measuring my merit as a person by the amount of money I was bringing in.
Yeah,
And
yeah, just sort of recapping, just because I mean, just to reassure you that you, of course, were not a bad person. Um, it's just crazy to think that it's your fault that this happened because you're a trucker, and that's because you're too flighty for a Walmart job. It's, you had every right to be a trucker, and you didn't do anything wrong. But I'm sure you know that.
yeah,
I'm the type of person that feels like wants to reassure you. Um, so when you quit and you said your wife said okay, she said that's fine. Like I understand. You're gonna just write for a while.
yep, that's correct. And she had a nice little Hermes portable typewriter that I could peck out my stories.
Did you start writing fiction at that time?
No, no, I was all about making money.
And so you thought to yourself, I'm gonna write articles for trucking magazines. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, because I knew trucking and sawmilling and logging, and also Sunday school. I think I'm recalling now just by having this conversation that I was thinking that I could be a Philip Yancey type who could write inspirational articles that would help people overcome their trauma.
Hmm.
And so, I was spiritually motivated, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
But that was hard. That's a hard market to break into where it was. And so local newspaper articles, I started taking pictures. And when I had pictures that went with the articles, things picked up pretty dramatically.
Hmm.
And, there was a 10-year stretch there when I was teaching writing classes and I met your mother. And, my goal was to, sell 5 articles a day to magazines and newspapers wherever I could.
Hmm.
And, a lot of times I achieved that. A lot of times I didn't, but that, it actually produced a fairly decent income stream. So, but it took 3 years of ponderous. If I'd have had maybe a mentor or a teacher, it probably would have gone faster. But I was learning this from reading books and articles about writing, and yeah. So, and plus, I also kept barfing on paper regarding the accident, and
As a
count.
separate thing?
Yeah, kind of more like journaling
Uh-huh.
and counseling sessions, therapy,
Uh-huh.
and was that whole experience was really hard on my marriage, and
Uh-huh.
basically it just trailed off and was probably the triggering event that ended it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but through that, my wife Bernadine was tolerant and supportive, and I learned how to write for newspapers and magazines. So, and then because I was working for the Milwaukee Sentinel at the time and filing uh, stories over a 300 baud acoustic modem from telephone booths, I learned about the computer biz.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a writing group I was in, one guy wanted to publish a book, a memoir about his time as a cop. And because I had computers and I I said, well, let's publish it. And that started Savage Press. So,
Because you had enough computer knowledge to do, I think, what they call desktop publishing.
yeah, exactly. I had the computer savvy and, page maker. And, I learned taught myself how to lay out books. And so Stop in the Name of the Law came out. And, I it appeared on the above the fold on the lifestyle section of the Duluth News Tribune.
Hmm.
And I got a call one morning from my friend Beth, and she said, "Congratulations." I said, "Well, on what?" And she said, "Well, you're on above the fold in the Tribune." And, and the author never told me he was interviewed or that it was going to be in the paper. So I, I think we printed like 500 copies,
Hmm.
and we sold 600 in the first 2 weeks after that article.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, wow, publishing is a moneymaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's not really the case.
Yeah.
Bestsellers are moneymakers, but publishing is pretty sketchy, especially nowadays.
Yeah. I suppose with the digital revolution.
Yep.
Um, it seems to me like you kind of conceive of when I was asking you about creativity, and you've gone back and forth between talking about writing novels and writing articles. It seems like in your mind, right, it's sort of writing is one big thing. Would that be accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's not a lot of difference between, writing the novel and creating scenes and creating, situations and trying to come up with a lead that'll grab the reader.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm doing an article on a guy or a woman or whoever, and they're a tough interview. They're not very talkative, and you're like pulling teeth trying to get them to share information.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end the interview and you stare at the screen and say, "What the hell just happened?" you know, how am I going to make this interesting? What's the lead? Sometimes it takes 3 days to come up with a good lead, or I'll call Beth and say, "Here's what happened. What's the lead?"
It
Because
seems it seems to me like two very different things. Doing that, writing an article about a business person. I don't know. Is that what you are? That's kind of what
Yeah.
you're working on now, right? Business
Yep.
articles.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't know. That's probably all sorts of different businesses, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I learn a lot.
That seems so different than writing a DeVecchi novel, but in your mind, there's a lot of similarity.
Yeah. There's no difference for me.
Wow. Can you,
Uh,
yeah, talk about that a little bit. If you,
well, for me, it's getting up, getting to the laptop and writing. It's writing. There's a blank screen there,
huh?
and if I move my fingers, right, then it's no longer a blank screen.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's creativity to me.
Yeah,
And whether it's about a fictional guy who's trying to catch a robber or about a businessman who's trying to make a go of it financially in the time of COVID, I still have to create the narrative. You
the
know,
story.
the sentence isn't there until I type.
Right.
And to me, that's very gratifying. That I've never been much for pottery, but you take a clump of clay and turn it into a bowl. That seems pretty cool,
Yeah. No,
and
I.
that's very gratifying for me. With it's gratifying to email it to the editor and then get a check,
Sure.
but that isn't really the deal. The deal is, my fingers are moving and something is coming to life,
Yeah.
and it's a life. If it's a boring business article, that doesn't matter much. I'm doing the best I can with what I have.
Yeah.
What matters is I'm doing the best with what I can with what I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I wouldn't. It's a surprise to me. I would have thought that you would have had the. I mean, I guess in my mind there would have been this like big sort of dividing wall between, oh, I write these articles to make money, and then I write novels for my creative. But for you, it's the storytelling across the board.
yeah, right. Yep, that's true. And that actually, this conversation is helping me clarify that in my own mind.
Hmm.
I've never really had this kind of a clarifying chat about what my process is.
Hmm.
So it's revelatory. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
this podcast has done that. This is the second time that somebody's had a revelatory experience. So I'm glad that happens.
yeah, it does. It has today for sure.
Good. Yeah, well, I think we can probably wrap up. This is about the limit of one of my episodes, and it's just been great to talk to you, Mike, to get your thoughts and your experience with creativity. I think for me, it has been therapeutic to get creative again. I kind of wasn't for a while. I mean, I think we all are creative
Yeah,
in our own ways.
yeah,
Like you mentioned, just finding an email or a phone number can be a creative thing, and
yeah,
I think I had that in my project management days, you
yeah,
know, and certainly in teaching and even on the hockey rink. But yeah, no, it was great to talk. I'm always curious about people who work creatively and how they see their own process and how they like how they move forward through the process. Because I sometimes I guess like everybody, I feel like I want to do something creative. I sit down someday, I'm not quite sure where to go.
yeah, yeah. That's part of the process. As far as not being creative, I mean, there's been periods in my 73 years where I haven't done anything creative. I've just been all about production. But
Meaning like just
it
making
does,
money.
it does come back. I mean, if you're supposed to be creative and you want to be creative, it will never go away. It'll always come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So it's something that, and it seems like you're okay with that, that you took, I know in the DeVecchi novels, there was a pretty large break. I think you wrote some at the first three, like Something in the Water and Burn Baby Burn and
Yeah. Lake effect.
Lake Effect. And then I think Lord of the Rings was all like in a 7, 8 year period, late 90s,
Right.
early
Yep.
2000s.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think it was before that. I think it was '90s.
And then you came back with DeVecchi in like what, 2015 or something?
Yeah, 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
So that's an example, right?
Yeah. It's it's you create different ways. When I moved to the country, then I had all that creativeness. just getting the place, a new place. And by the way, I want to tell you that that deer is still alive.
Oh, is it?
I call it Patrick, by the way.
Oh, lovely.
For those of you listening, when Patrick came to visit, there was a fawn that was abandoned, and I found it in my woodshed.
Yeah,
And we fed it warm milk and brought it back to life
yeah,
because it was near death. It was flopped out flat on the ground and hardly breathing. And I think its mother got hit by a car.
yeah.
And
I mean, you
so,
fed it milk. I didn't really. I watched, but yes, that was.
right. Yeah. So Patrick is still prancing around.
He stays around your property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like something out of a film too,
Yeah.
out of a David Lynch movie or something.
Right. Exactly.
Here
Yeah.
I am visiting you. I mean, you're a family friend, but we didn't keep in close contact for years. Um, we were on Facebook. We've been Facebook friends for a while, and that's when I saw one of your DeVecchi books uh, promoted, and I bought it, and I loved it, and then I started buying all the rest of them, and that's when we started interacting again. And then, and then I was having all these synchronicities with your books and with you, and then I went for a visit, which is, not my normal thing to visit somebody that lives way out in rural on a small in a rural area in a small town, but this large piece of land, and very, very different than my day-to-day experience in Brooklyn, of course. And then as we're there visiting, and we'd walked around some of the scenery that your books are set in, and then then there was this fawn or deer, and it was, yeah, just near death, and it had sought refuge in one of your buildings, in one of your kind of barn-like buildings.
Right. Right.
And you and your friend nursed it back to health, which is,
Yeah. My friend Kathy was here, and she was kind of a health nut caregiver, and so we got an eyedropper and started putting milk in its mouth, and
yeah,
pretty soon its throat started working, and
yeah,
an hour later it was standing up, and
yeah.
we were petting it, and so
I
yeah.
can't imagine. I'm sure you encounter wildlife more than I do, but I'm guessing that's not a pretty regular occurrence.
No, that was highly unusual.
Yeah,
One,
the kind of
one,
synchronicity.
right? Exactly. So
Yeah. Well, Mike, thanks so much. It's been wonderful
yeah,
to talk to you about your process. It's and about your spirituality, because I see the two as very linked. Like, I can't imagine when you were talking about starting the Savage Press. It just seems like I almost got nervous, or I was getting nervous just thinking about taking on such a thing. From
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I haven't. I made a big career change. I left. I was a project manager for big corporations for about 10 years. I managed teams that built websites and mobile applications, and I just like coordinated. I'm not trained as a computer scientist or a software developer, but I helped coordinate the teams, um, and then I had this sense that I should become a teacher. I had thought about it for a long time, and I got laid off after I'd done my best work at a
yeah,
company, and it was frustrating for me. And
yeah, yeah,
I just knew that I'd started off like doing writing. I was writing some comedy, some television scripts for
okay,
my friend and I. His wife was an animator, and she worked as a graphic designer, and we were
uh-huh,
trying to write animated TV shows. And then I started working with them on advertising, and then that got me into this project managing thing because we would worked on websites. And but I went from writing comedy to like working on these software projects, which was a completely
yeah,
different thing, and I just didn't feel like I was connecting with it. So I thought about doing something that I could connect with more, and that's when I got into teaching.
yeah, yeah.
And that was terrifying for me. I
Well,
mean,
I'm glad to hear it.
I
I'm
had the
glad to
sense
hear
that
it.
I should do it,
Yeah,
and I kept getting green lights. I was really cautious. I was checking stats about teacher hires, teaching hiring trends, and
yeah,
this big financial plan, and I was just really cautious about it. And I just kept getting green lights at each
yeah.
step.
Awesome.
So I kept going. Um, but yeah, no, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, and
Wow.
So it seems like you've even taken greater leaps more frequently, and
I don't know if it's greater or not, but if it's not terrifying, it's probably a little bit less legit.
yeah. Well, I think the faith helps, helps one move forward because
Yep.
for me at least, I can't be terrified all the time. I just can't.
Yeah.
Like a big thing in my life is learning how to process fear and to turn away from it.
Yep. Yep.
It's always like accepting it, and as I try to move away from it,
Yep. Yep.
that dance I think any reflective person does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad that we got into the spirituality because I can see that being for me any major change, like I mentioned before, getting sober, which was also something that I didn't probably think I could have done at a younger age.
Yeah. Yeah.
My spiritual foundation allowed for that for sure, and
Right.
it allowed for the career change too, which maybe was even harder.
Yeah. I like the Al-Anon saying that says we all get to Al-Anon at the right time.
Yeah,
So, and then going through those green lights, even though it might be a terrifying change, every time you have a green light and go through, it reduces the terror.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah.
I
I
hope
gotta
our
say,
paths cross soon. And yeah, well, you need to say something?
yeah, I was going to say I'm very grateful for the conversation. You helped me move forward in several regards here. So thanks. I'm
Oh,
grateful.
wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that. This podcast, sometimes I feel like it's doing things I could never have imagined, and I don't even totally understand until people tell me.
Yeah. Well, it happened today for me. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, I hope our paths cross again soon. I do get back in the summer. Hopefully, we'll get back again this summer, and maybe I will be able to see you. And I'll be having my eyes peeled for the next DeVecchi novel, if there's one to come.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great talking to you, Pat.
All right, take care, Mike.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye bye.